as a franchisee, you can go to a million different franchises, but you need to have a why because it's not going to be easy. And on those hardest days when you want to quit, you're not going to because this is a passion for you. And so don't go into something just to make a buck. Go into something that matters to you.
Welcome to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Each episode takes a deep dive into the franchise space and explores how the biggest and best brands handle national branding, franchise development, employee recruitment, and localized marketing on a daily basis. This podcast is brought to you by Netsertive, a localized digital marketing partner for franchise networks. Netsertive's Madeleine Park talked shop with franchise executives to discuss what's working, what's not, and answers the question, what else can you be doing to excel at the art of franchise marketing?
Hello, and welcome back to the Art of Franchise Marketing, a podcast series brought to you by Netsertive. I'm Madeleine Park, the Director of Marketing. We're a digital marketing partner that works with franchisors to implement and localize marketing campaigns for their franchisees. Today, our guest is Josie DeVault, Director of Marketing at A Place at Home. Josie, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Maddie.
All right, so we will just jump right in. Why don't you give me a background on yourself, how you got into marketing and franchising and all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all started back in 2006. I was a graphic designer right out of college, actually, and I went to work for a holiday lighting distributor. It was actually one of the first high quality holiday lighting company, and it started right here in the Midwest, and then they expanded through a distributorship. And so I had a lot of fun working with people all over the country, and it was mostly doing direct mail marketing. They brought in a printer, and so I started printing signage. I printed vehicle wraps, got a lot of experience right there, right out the gates. I also did freelance on the side, which connected me with my next job and got me into the nonprofit world. I went to work for the largest sporting event that happened in 2010 as their brand management and special projects person. And it was an amazing experience. I was with them for 2 years and we had a small team wearing many hats. And this was actually for the Special Olympics national games.
Wow.
And so we wrapped 13 venues. We had about 50,000 people descend upon Lincoln, Nebraska in 2010. And it was just an amazing, amazing community event and brought everybody together. And I learned a lot. But once the games were over, the job was done. And fast forward a few years later, I was working for another nonprofit that would bring in 30,000 tourists every March for the sandhill crane migration that came through Nebraska. And so, that was kind of unique in that 30,000 people were coming, whether or not I was marketing. But my unique task was trying to bring in VIPs so that we could have high-end donors. And so again, a really unique marketing opportunity for me. And then I was recruited via LinkedIn by one of the co-founders at A Place at Home. And I thought this was such a unique opportunity to get in and help small business owners. Once again, kind of how I started out, this side being on the franchise side. They also still had a corporate owned location. So they needed help locally. And then they also needed help launching these new franchise locations. So they started franchising in 2017 and I came on in 2018.
That is awesome. And I love that you climbed the corporate ladder, but like in such a marketing way. Like I was printing like van wraps, like
Yes.
not that like I was doing direct mail. Like this is like our version of like getting coffee. Like,
Right.
yeah.
You do everything and you become a broad marketer.
Exactly.
And I think that's almost the best way to do it because you have a little experience in everything. And that's how you end up knowing, what every department is doing that you eventually are going to be overseeing.
Sure. Yeah. And you definitely have all that experience with like dealing with a million different people and projects. And that's probably is what made you so successful in franchising because
Well, and who knew that you would need to know event planning as a graphic designer, and it just kind of fell in there. And, now I'm planning our conventions.
Totally. And I think that's what people like don't realize as franchise marketers is like, yeah, we go from like the very micro marketing local to like the national brand within like 10 minutes of a meeting, but also we have to deal with every personality and vendor under the sun. Like,
Right.
give me an
Yep.
award. I'm awesome. Cool. So we will just dive in a little more into, a place at home. So they started in 2017. Give us a description of kind of what they do in case this is a new brand to some of our listeners, and then kind of what your mission is, number of locations, and where you guys are looking to grow.
Okay. So actually, Dustin and Jared started a place at home in 2012. They started it here locally when they couldn't find acceptable care for their own grandparents. Now, they were in their late 20s. They had no healthcare background, but they were entrepreneurs and they saw a need. So they started a place at home with the mission to be passionate professionals, providing the compassionate care you need where and when you need us. So they boldly entered a very crowded home care market in the backyard of two major home care giants. But,
Wow.
they had something new and they had something fresh to offer, and that was senior focused care. So it's comprehensive, consistent, and continuous. So the four service lines we offer is in-home senior care, care coordination, senior living alternatives, which is when it's time to move out of the home. We help that senior with a free service find a community that is best suited for them. And then the final one is more B2B, where it's staffing solutions. So it's not only multiple revenue streams for our franchise owners, but it's also a continuum of care for the senior so they can use somebody from the beginning to the end.
That's awesome. I love that. And when, so how many locations do you have now?
So we started franchising in 2017. I
Mhm.
came on when there was, gosh, just a handful. I think there was about four, and we were bringing on three more when I started. We're now at 20.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we're growing. We're growing. We're growing.
Yes. Yes. We're an emerging brand.
Yeah. And I have to ask, how did you guys do during the pandemic? This was supposed to be later on, but we'll just get into it now, especially with growth. And I know it affected a lot of franchises on both sides, not only with their franchisees, but also with the fran dev. So, and how did that affect you guys on a corporate and local level?
It's kind of interesting. We kind of heard about this coronavirus that was, overseas, and then it started to sneak into the country. And we actually have a franchisee that's in South Portland, and he gave us a heads up that this was a huge deal. And so
Mhm.
here, in the Midwest, we were able to prepare for it, and we actually released a video about. This is back when we called it coronavirus as opposed to COVID-19, but coronavirus prevention. And we released a video about it and started communicating to our clients what our plans were. And we did that before any of the bigger brands did. And so just that communication with them, we were able to kind of get ahead of it. Um, we were able to source hand sanitizer and face masks and get them out to all the franchisees. And so we were more so like on the operations side ahead of the game. And
Mhm.
so we put a Q&A page up on our website right away just to have a flow of information so that everybody knew what was going on and what our next, plan of action was. As far as marketing goes, we went digital. We took our discovery days digital. We did our trainings digital. And this last convention we had was the first opportunity for us to get back together in the same room. And a lot of these people that were meeting were meeting for the first time in person. They did their training together digitally, and then they got to see each other face to face. And there was Dina and Gary. They did their training and they came on board at the same time and really helped each other out in those beginning days. And they ran up and hugged each other at the convention. It was
Oh.
just so amazing to see it. But yeah, beyond that, we did happy hours with our franchisees to get them together, to get them start communicating on what they were marketing, how they were marketing in their areas. We had one that opened up in New Orleans right in the midst of the pandemic. And referral marketing is one of our big pushes in the very beginning with a franchisee. And
Mhm.
that involves going into communities that were now all shut down. And so he did a snack shack out of the trunk of his car. He had a wrapped vehicle. He had branded buckets with snacks in them. People would come out. He had a sign and everything. And so that was how he was able to meet his referral partners during that time. He shared that with our franchisees and they started doing it around the country. We had another one out of Little Rock that did a hugging booth that ended up getting national press. And it was awesome. I mean, like seniors are finally able to come out and actually embrace their loved ones. And it's a beautiful community.
Yeah. And I think the biggest, takeaway from these stories is that like your franchise corporate team or the franchisor in a whole, you're listening to your franchisees. You guys
Oh,
were
absolutely.
you're able to be ahead of the game because you listened to your franchisee in Portland and saying, "This is a big deal," and instead, "We're the franchisor, it's fine, we'll deal with it when it happens," which I think will happen to a lot of people. It was,
Right.
"All right, so and so is saying this is real, let's prep." Better to be I think now we know it's better to be over prepared than not, and
Yeah.
especially in an industry that is this is so sensitive. These are people's lives and loved ones. So in terms of, did your franchisees, are they having, employment struggles still? Are they seeing, demand what does that look like? Because, I don't have a lot of background in the senior care industry. So I'm curious to know if that industry's really bounced back, or because the need's going to be there no matter what, as we kind of come out of this COVID Delta, hopefully, era, you know, does there more precautions in place? What does that look like in terms of bringing new customers on?
That was one of the unique things that we faced was the labor shortage. And I mean, that's, across many industries right now. But we had to pivot this last year from going, trying to get clients to our franchisees are turning away clients because they don't have the staff. And so we hit the ground running and we wanted to unroll all this caregiver recruitment and retention strategies in time for our convention, which happened in September. And so our team was hustling. Um, we partnered with on the corporate side, we partnered with an employee discount program, which we rolled out right away to help with retention. And we gave them marketing materials to promote that. We actually hired a brand engagement specialist who works for the franchisees. She sends out a national caregiver newsletter. She puts together weekly ads that go out on Facebook trying to recruit caregivers. She assembled an orientation toolkit that includes a career growth path. She wrote an amazing blog about one of our staff members here at the franchisor level who started as a caregiver for Omaha and worked
Wow.
her way up. She wrote this amazing blog. It's on placeathome.com. Her journey inspired us to create, this pathway for all caregivers to be able to move up. We created care programs the year before. So these are specialty programs that our caregivers can actually get training in. And through one of our partnerships, they can actually get college credit through this. And we send out lapel pins when they graduate,
Oh, wow.
and in order to recognize them and help them move up. We do a National Caregiver of the Year. This year, we flew them into Omaha for the convention. They had a spa day. They were awarded $1,000, and that franchisee was able to celebrate this caregiver in front of all their peers and recognize them for the work that they're doing. We also launched our Care Recruit and Retention video program. It's an 11-week training series that they can put out to all the staff as well so that everybody's on the same page. And
Wow.
we just had a lot of different pieces that we deployed this last
Like
year,
Arsenal.
and and we'll see which ones work, which ones need to be adjusted, but we saw the need and executed on it as quickly as we could.
Yeah, and I think that that's so important to note is that employee recruitment and retention, while it doesn't feel like it falls on marketing, it absolutely does. Just
Yeah,
as you market for new customers, you have to continuously fill that employee pipeline. And that, you're able to get creative like you are in marketing with that employee. Like you have the lapel pins and the, caregiver of the year. So being able to kind of incorporate all departments in there is just going to help, fill the pipeline, if anything. People want to
right,
work for somewhere where they can make a life, not just paycheck. So I think, especially in your industry, that's super important. And then in
right.
terms of pandemic marketing, did you have to do anything aside from, obviously the employee recruitment that had to change the way you were marketing in terms of, yeah, I know when I was working at Made Pro, we had to switch a lot of our campaigns over to like the difference between dusting and disinfecting, or, we had to educate our clients on why we're wearing the masks and the gloves and the differences in the rags. So did you guys have to change your messaging at all, or were you able to kind of stay the same?
Well, we pretty much stayed the same, but of course, you're going to have. We changed our images, so our caregivers were wearing masks in our ads. Yeah, outside of that, our messaging pretty much stayed the same.
Yeah, I like that. And Because I think it depends on the industry as well, as it's like sometimes people just want to see that stagnant, this is something I can trust. And then there's different industries where it's like, well, what are you doing? Like, don't market to me with, like, if you had caregivers with no masks, I'm sure you'd be called out on that now. So making the
Yeah.
little changes so that they still
Well,
care.
and like I said at the very beginning, we put out our messaging on what we were going to do for
Mhm.
coronavirus prevention, and so we had that messaging out there, and then we would have the basics of we just I don't know.
Yeah, I gotcha. All that stuff. The
Yeah.
over communication is good communication.
Right. Right.
So continuing on into marketing, and now that we're kind of, you've got the gist, you've seen pre and post corona, what are some obstacles you face while marketing in your industry and how have you kind of worked to overcome them? I mean, again, you're not selling like Barbies, from Target. So it's a different type of need.
Mm.
So how do you guys go about that for acquisition?
So we're kind of in a unique situation where we're not only looking for qualified candidates. They have to have a reason why they want to get into senior care beyond just the monetary benefits.
Mhm.
And so, being smaller, we can ship faster and we're constantly working to streamline our processes. Um, and these are all very time consuming endeavors. We bring in so many leads and we talk to so many people. We want to make sure we're bringing in the right type of leads. So we actually started an ad campaign on LinkedIn where we took the profile of our top performers and we made them avatars. And so we're trying to target those same type of people using their stories to try to bring them in, try to bring in those people that have had experiences within their own family. They're not only professionals, but they want to give back to their community. So we've also partnered with consultant groups, and during the pandemic, we did a big push on building those relationships. And so we've actually done a lot of direct mail with our consultant groups over the past year just to build up those relationships. And we've had a great response from them. And then anytime a consultant does introduce us to an awesome franchisee, we always ask them to leave a review on our Google My Business page. And we share those reviews, and we're just we're building up those relationships.
Yeah, and I think that's super. First of all, I think that's so cool that you did a direct mail to consultants. For some of the listeners that might not know what we're talking about. So in franchising, you can partner with broker group. They're going to help introduce you to franchising candidates. They're in charge of getting their own leads, and then they help the candidate through the process and finding a concept that fits. A lot of times, the brokers have libraries of brands they can work with. So just because you're a partner with a broker doesn't necessarily mean they're going to sell your concept. You got to stay top of mind. So I think that's,
Hmm.
that's a really great touch point there. And then also just kind of utilizing the same tactics that you use for consumer with brand dev, leaving reviews, sharing that, going on LinkedIn and really building those connections, I think is super important. In terms of consumer, what are your kind of top marketing outlets there? Because it's funny because you're not necessarily marketing to the baby boomers because it's usually their families that are in the
Yep.
younger generations that are putting them in. So while it might seem like older, like newspaper or direct mail might work, I'm sure you've had to shift kind of to get in front of their family members. So what does that look like for you guys?
So a lot of our locations are under 3 years old. One of our big focuses right out the gate is referral marketing. They have to get their name out there. They have to get to know these communities that will then refer one of their clients to our franchisees. And that's where we start. And then we start building them up on branding and going on social media. We partnered with an ad agency that they can choose to use or not use, but we do a lot of training there on what they need to do on social media. But it is targeting those adult children. We attempted to do a push on Google Ads, and our brand is still so young that it is hard to put enough funds into it to compete for those keywords.
Yeah.
This is a saturated market with home care agencies, and so we're really just pushing on building those relationships right out the gate.
Awesome. And how do you guys coach on if someone calls in and says, "Oh, well, my sister says that she knows someone that can take care of mom," or why should they go with a more established, franchise brand rather than an independent? Because in a lot of service brands, you see that the independents are the biggest competition, not the other franchises. So how would you guys coach your franchisees on that?
Well, every franchisee has a why. There's a reason why they're getting into this. And I think that personal touch really comes through when they talk to a prospect. And they're also talking to the owner. They're not talking to a staff member. So they've got a close connection right there, and they know that their voice is going to be heard if something isn't going right. We also do surveys for our prospects and the caregivers. And so we see those survey results at the corporate level, and we have a benchmark where we want them to be at. And so I think being able to have them pivot as well to improve their performance, it's just that personalized service that they're getting.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I love that. And that leads us kind of into our last major topic, which is kind of the marketing trickle down. So you're in a brand that's people centric, passion carrying. How do you and your team work to ensure that that brand image and message is adopted with your franchisees? Like, how are you making sure that they're not just going out and making their own logo, which I have seen, and I'm like, what is happening?
Well, we've got hired muscle. They troll the internet at night. We call them the brand police.
Hired muscle, I love that.
No, honestly, this is something that I've learned too, because, I kind of came into it assuming everybody's just as passionate about marketing as I am. And so when I was initially training them, I figured I could just tell them and then they would go and do it. No problem. Come to find out, not everybody understands what a brand is. And so I took my training back to the basics to help them understand what it is and why it's important to help gain their trust so that they wouldn't want to veer away from what we were doing. We actually had like a 2-page brand standard guide that was just cosmetic. And so I expanded that to include our brand voice. And that's something that they can use when they're training their own staff. We expanded it to include the branded environment. And so now they're going to have an office that looks professional. And it's not just a banner hanging on the wall, and we're in hyper growth mode. So we're just going to continue adding to it and giving them more resources. But I would say all of our most recent franchisees have done an excellent job staying on brand. We even included the types of images we want used, down to just if you're going to be taking a photo and you're out in the field, make sure you have your branded apparel on, and everybody's doing excellent job, sharing what they're doing and tagging the right people and just trying to get viral.
That's awesome. No, I like that. And it comes down to, literally the essence of trickle down from Josie all the way to, an employee that hires full brand buy-in. That's part of why you bought in a franchise, is to use that national brand and really use it. Don't just say you have it. The importance of having the branded shirts, it's the branded cups. Like, first of all, people love swag. Like, it's never going away.
Well, and that's one of the things that we also have. We have an online store, so they can pull from the store any of these printed items or the swag items that they need, and that's the easier way to stay on brand. Social media gets a little bit tricky because they can do a little bit more. They have a little bit more free will there, but we haven't really seen anything yet. Knock on wood. That we've had to police.
That's great. Yeah. And so I come from a very tall family. My brother is 6'7", my dad is 6'5". And at one point he's like, Maddie, get me, this is, I think, a basketball company I was working at. He's like, get me a t-shirt. And I was like, I do want a t-shirt. He's like, I'm literally the biggest billboard you can have. Like,
exactly. It's all about looking for those opportunities.
Exactly. So, quick
organic growth.
Yeah. Get the swag out there. And then how do you guys handle, I know you talked about reviews kind of on the franchisor side. How do you do reputation management and reviews? How do you coach that with your franchisees to ensure that they're coming in so that your referral network is working?
Well, we actually always tell them to ask for the 5 stars. And if the client feels like they're not going to give them 5 stars, they can fix that issue right up front. And that's just one of the coaching pieces that we give them. But we also coach them on how to respond when this is a very personal service. So it's bound to happen where you're going to get a 1-star review. And so we coach them on how to respond to those reviews. And sometimes those reviews come in and they're not fair. And it's hard to respond, in the brand voice. But I always tell them you're responding to the people that are reading the response. You're not necessarily always responding to the person who left the review.
Mhm.
And so that kind of helps them get over that hump there. But outside of that, we've partnered with a vendor that does the surveys, and that helps us gauge how their satisfaction scores are doing with clients and caregivers. And then also annually we do an award at our convention where we award the top client, top caregiver stat scores. And so we do competitions here quarterly. Like right now, we've got one, whoever can bring in the most 5-star reviews, we're going to buy lunch for their whole staff. And so we're encouraging them to go out there and get those 5-star reviews as opposed to waiting to get a 1-star review and then needing 10 to offset that 1 star.
Mhm. Yeah.
Don't,
No,
don't let those happy customers slip through the cracks without letting you know what their testimonial is.
exactly. And when people are happy, they want to share that, especially with such a personal service. I know if, my neighbor was using you guys and was thrilled, I'd be like, here, take my parents. Mom and dad, sorry. No, that's really great. We did at Made Pro, they did a 5-star review contest. So it was within each local office. But so with Made Pro, they get specific pros or cleaners that go into the houses. And if they got a 5-star review, the pro would get like a $20 bonus. So they had incentive to do a good job and ask for the review. And then at the same time, the client themselves were like, of course, I want to give the person that's working for me in the business, an extra tip there. So I like we're going to buy, lunch for that whole office and stuff. Cause I'll take a free lunch. Sign me up.
Yep, it's coming to you, the Woodlands.
Yeah. Love it. And then you mentioned your convention, and I know most franchises do conventions. You were so busy in September. That's why we're doing the podcast now. I was like,
Right.
and you're like, hold on. What does your convention look like? I think a lot of people just assume they're all the same, but do you guys do, is it just meet and greets? Do you do lessons? Do they meet with the departments? How did you set that up, especially since you are an event coordinator extraordinaire?
You're going to give me a bad reputation here. No. Actually, we started with, we pick a theme and we were going to we were going to target it to trying to get more clients. And we had to pivot because of what happened with the pandemic. And so we switched it to be caregiver recruitment and retention. And so we found speakers, we go out and get sponsors as well as speakers that would talk on that topic. So then we set up the first day and it's all speakers with a keynote speaker ending the day. And then the next day we do roundtables and we talk on the same topic, the same theme. And so all the franchisees get to sit and they actually share their ideas. And I felt like that was immensely beneficial. We had one guy in South Portland that talked about how he changed his interview style. And the guy from Orlando took it and implemented it in his market. And he's like, we brought on 15 caregivers this week.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
so, those kind of takeaways are awesome. But mostly it's about team building. It's about getting everybody together and building that sense of community. And so we have events each night. We have a welcome reception. We did a cocktail hour where we had custom cocktails made in our brand colors, which I love.
That's so fun.
And then the final night is our big award ceremony. We did a team building event at Top Golf. And then we had an award ceremony where we could recognize the franchisees that have done amazing things. And then our National Caregiver of the Year got to come up and receive her award too. And it was just an incredible time.
That's great.
It was a lot of work, but it's all worth it in the end.
I hope you drank a lot of the place at home drink. Leave the recipe from you later.
There's no videos to prove otherwise.
Yeah. Where did you guys hold it?
We had it here in Omaha. We've looked into doing it. We were actually going to start doing it in each of the franchise locations, like in order. We were going to go to Colorado, but we decided, these first few years, we're going to have it in Omaha. So our newer franchisees can come in and see the flagship location. And,
Sure. Yeah. Save a little money too.
Yeah, save a little money too. We've got our 10 year this next year, so we're going to do something fun.
Well, I better be invited. I'm coming. I'm the bartender. I'm coming.
Hey, I'll tell you what, you can sponsor it. You got a free trip right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that you guys gave them the time and space to talk to each other. I've been to so many conventions where there's just no time to talk to people. And that's the most important part about the convention,
right?
Is, getting education from your peers. And then lastly, how would you like to see the brand evolve? Where do you want to see a place at home in 5, 10, 20 years?
Well, I hope we continue to grow. No. I would say, in the next 2 years, I hope that we double in size.
Mhm.
And, beyond that, I want to see our franchisees succeeding so that they are going to have multiple locations. Where we've talked about bringing on other brands as well. And, I'm just really excited to see the direction that our co-founders are going to take it. We're all 100% on board, and backing the mission. And, uh, you know, it's just all uphill from here.
I love that. Yeah, hyper growth mode, like you said. And hopefully you guys are around in how old am I? In probably more than 20 years. But so that my kids are like, I'm calling Josie, mom, you're going in.
There you go. That's what we love to hear. Can I get you to
Very
sign
cool.
something?
Yeah, right.
Let's
All
lock
right.
this in now.
Yeah, seriously. All right, I've got 2 bonus questions, which always tend to be the most popular. So I'll ask you them both. First, how do you define success as a franchisor? And does that differ from how you would define success as a franchisee?
So as the franchisor, we actually have a mission of making great people successful business owners. And and so success to us is awarding another franchise territory where we're going to coach them up to be successful business owners. That means they're going to be serving more seniors in their community with our mission. They're going to be hiring caregivers and treating them as valued employees and helping them grow their own careers. That's success to me. Obviously, the numbers matter too. But we've seen growth year over year. I think our revenue as a system grew 150% last year.
Wow.
And so, that's amazing that we have these franchisees that are reaching their potential.
Okay. I love that. And yeah, 150% through COVID. Like, God bless your competitors because clearly you're
Yeah.
doing something right.
Well, and I was going to say that was one of the marketing things that we added was that we're an essential business. We're not only recession resistant, but we're also now pandemic resistant. And so this was actually a good place to be during the pandemic because people were pulling their loved ones out of communities and bringing them back home.
Yeah, definitely. And people are not going to stop aging. Just as babies aren't going to. So my son just realized he just is learning about sedation or whatever. And he comes home. He's like, if I eat a lot of blueberries, will I stop getting old? I was like, I'm sure it's been tested. Not true. So,
That's
no
adorable.
matter what, people are getting old. And it's nice that they have a place such as a place at home to age gracefully and have the support they need. And then lastly, what is one piece of advice you'd give to other franchisors? And what's a piece of advice you'd give to franchisees?
I thought about this one and for franchisors, if you're a small brand, I would recommend starting an FAC, which is a franchise advisory council. That way you're not shooting in the dark. It's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of energy if you have the input from your franchisees directly. We have quarterly meetings. We just started this last year and it's just been invaluable in what they've provided for us. And we take ideas to them as well. And we like to get their feedback and make decisions based on the consensus of the majority.
Sure, that's awesome. And then as a franchisee, what is a piece of advice you'd give?
As a franchisee, you can go to a million different franchises, but you need to have a why because it's not going to be easy. And on those hardest days when you want to quit, you're not going to because this is a passion for you. And so don't go into something just to make a buck. Go into something that matters to you. It's a lot easier to make a buck and it's a lot harder to make a difference. And so if you want to make a difference, sometimes you're gonna have to get your hands dirty and do the hard work. But if it's your passion, you're gonna stick with it.
I love that. Find your why, people. So we're coming up on time. Josie, where should people go to learn more about you and A Place at Home?
You can go to aplaceathome.com to learn about our services, or you can go to aplaceathomefranchise.com to learn about starting your own franchise.
I love that. Well, Josie, thank you again. I know you're an emerging brand, but I feel like I'm talking to a vet. So clearly a bright future for you and your brand. I appreciate you spending some time with us, and it was great having you on the Art of Franchise Marketing.
Well, I appreciate you having me, Maddie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to The Art of Franchise Marketing. This show is brought to you by Netsertive. We help franchise brands and multi-location businesses run localized digital marketing at scale. To learn more, visit netsertive.com.